The next big storm system is already coming into view. What's going on, guys? Certified meteorologist Jonathan Keg is back with you. We are, of course, going to talk about that a little bit later on in the video. I'll have the chapters in the description so you can kind of bounce around. If you are on the West Coast, we're going to talk about that big storm. Ahead of that, though, we are still dealing with that multi-day severe weather threat. It is shifting east, so we're going to give you the latest timeline on that, the intensity, and the outlook areas that we are concerned with. And then as that moves up into the northeast, some snow is going to be possible. Some places could pick up several inches of snow in interior New England. We're going to break that part down coming up in just a little bit as well. And then at the end of the video, about a week or two ago, I told you that winter was going to make a late season comeback, especially in the east. That continues to look like it's going to do so in a much, much bigger way. I'm going to show you some of the latest modeling when it comes to that third week of March toward the end of the video. Before we get into all that, if you do want to stay updated on all things weather, you've come to the right place. Please hit that subscribe button, hang out with us, and hit that thumbs up button as well if you happen to find this content helpful. So we're going to start with the ongoing severe weather threat, and then we're going to talk about that storm system coming in from the Pacific, ready to slam the West Coast once again. Severe threat pushing to the east. Here we go in yellow. This is that heightened level of severe weather risk. Still 2 out of 5. Again, we're nowhere near that high risk, but nonetheless, we do have that little bit of an elevated risk from Shreveport into Jackson, Montgomery, Monroeville, into parts of the panhandle of Florida, including Pensacola, and then on the north side of Lake Pontchartrain, just north of New Orleans, we are in that marginal risk in the city, and then also the northern suburbs of Houston, back to Waco, Dallas, into Texarkana. So that's where we're watching for the severe weather threat to unfold today, and then it continues to move to the east tomorrow, and I will show you the future radar coming up in just 1 second. Sumter into Charleston, Wilmington, North Carolina, we're going to be under the gun tomorrow on March 9th. Albany, Georgia, Brunswick, Georgia, getting back into more of the panhandle of Florida. That's going to be also into Jacksonville, Panama City, Tallahassee. We are going to be in that next tier up, that 2 out of 5, that slight risk as designated by the Storm Prediction Center. So those are the threat areas that we were talking about. Here is the actual timeline here and intensity of this line of thunderstorms that is going to be pushing from west to east. So we're starting this at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. This is going to be later on today, Friday, March 8th. That's when we are recording this video. And note the darker reds and purples. That's where we have the more intense thunderstorms. Anything that develops outside of this main line, out ahead of this main line, that's where we are going to have the tornadic potential. It becomes not zero, of course, but as they get embedded in that line, it's a little bit harder for tornadoes to develop, although we do get something called QLCS tornadoes, the quasi-linear tornadoes that are in that QLCS, that convective system there that continues to kind of develop and push to the east. Montgomery, Alabama, this is 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central, getting into Atlanta this evening as well, around Hattiesburg, into Biloxi, into the panhandle of Florida, into Mobile, Alabama as well. See some of the darker reds and purples. So it could be some nasty thunderstorms rolling through later on this Friday evening before we eventually see this kind of try to fizzle out just a little bit and then become mainly a heavy rain threat into South Carolina, into North Carolina, but a few embedded strong thunderstorms are going to be there. Again, we saw that heightened risk there, that 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. You see there's 9 o'clock on our Saturday morning, raining pretty heavily in Myrtle Beach and into the coast of North Carolina. Then back through the afternoon, this is where that severe weather threat continues as we can heat up today just a little bit. There's 3 o'clock, and you see some scattered strong thunderstorms to the west of Jacksonville, north of Gainesville, and then sliding into central Florida gradually late into Saturday night into early Sunday morning. There is 6 o'clock in the morning, still some scattered downpours around, but by that point, the severe weather intensity will continue to weaken as that line of thunderstorms gradually pushes into South Florida. Now, while that is pushing south, that cold front, we have the main system itself kind of lifting back up into the north. So still, we're back to Saturday morning, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, March 9th. We have some steady to heavy rain in the Roanoke Valley. We have that pushing up into western Pennsylvania, into a lot of Ohio, into Kentucky as well. And then this gradually pushes into some quasi-cool air, and we do get some snow, especially in the higher elevations. That's what the blue represents here, especially into Vermont, upstate New York, New Hampshire, getting into Maine, of course, New York City. This is all going to be rain. Boston, this is all going to be rain. Same for us in Rhode Island, on Long Island, and in into Connecticut as well. Western New York, we might be able to see a few flakes start to come down, and then the lake effect machine starts to crank up just a little bit. Now we do get some snow continuing into southeast Canada. This is going to head up into Newfoundland. This is going to work in New Brunswick, and then even into Nova Scotia, especially the further inland we could see a few little bursts of snow. I don't think anything too crazy for us in Nova Scotia. Here's the high resolution future radar, the future snowfall amounts, I should say. And for us in Michigan, again, I mentioned about the lake effect snow machine coming. We are going to see some lake effect snow showers. So Garfield picking up 3 inches. Muskegon, we can pick up a couple of inches. Same for us into Grand Rapids, into Elbridge. And then the further east we are into Ottawa, anywhere from 3 to 7 centimeters of snow. That'll continue into Montreal as well, to Quebec. You see that bigger bullseye. We could double that, maybe 6 to 14 centimeters of snow in that bright purple, that lavender color there in between Ottawa and Montreal. And then you see back into the New York area, upstate New York, into Glenville, we could pick up a few inches. In the higher elevations of upstate New York, we could pick up, see it there, the Model 1's a foot. And then higher elevations of in Vermont, the Green Mountains, there you go. Couple of inches. Rutland itself, maybe an inch or two. Conway into New Hampshire, we could pick up a couple of inches. And then same for extreme interior Maine. So that's where we are going to see the snowfall threat. If you're still with me, post in the comments where you're tuning in from. I would love to know what the weather is doing where you are watching from. We are going to transition now back to the west, where we are already monitoring our next big system sliding on through. And you see the swirl right here. This is the water vapor imagery, the amount of moisture in the mid to upper levels of our atmosphere. And as this thing continues to spin, we will watch a couple of these things. So look out toward the Gulf of Alaska. We have a little swirl here. This is storm number 1 that's going to come into the Pacific Northwest as we get into the weekend. That is going to be right here. And then that bigger system, look at this powerhouse way out here. That is going to eventually slide into the west coast as well. So we're going to have this conveyor belt of this train of some bigger storms coming through. The first one's this weekend. The more intense one is later in the weekend, and especially earlier into next week. So I wanted to show you the amount of rain coming our direction into the Pacific Northwest and kind of the progression of this. So this is going to be on Saturday. This is storm 1, and the higher elevation is going to get some snow. Look at the lower elevations for us into Portland, Seattle. You see that little spiral. Our big area of low pressure is right here. And again, this is the smaller of the two, spiraling through, getting into the weekend. There's 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. Let me get that L out of the way. That is since kind of pushed on land. And then watch what happens as we get into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. There is that bigger storm that works its way, again, from kind of the Aleutian Islands all the way back into the Pacific Northwest and parts of northern Canada. As a result, as you may imagine, a ton of moisture is coming down the pipeline. Very heavy mountain snow coming to the Cascades late this weekend, early into the week, and some very heavy low elevation rain. Look at this. And at Tofino, 6-7 inches of rain. And again, sometimes these models underdo the precipitation that comes in with these big atmospheric river events, like we're going to see these big Pacific storms that slide on through. Medford, we could pick up a couple of inches right along the coast, likely 3, 4, 5 inches into Eureka, 3 to 6 inches of rain easily, 4 to 5 inches of rain in Newport, back up into Forks as well. So western Washington, western Oregon, and then northwestern California. That is where these next series of storms is going to kind of pan out for us. It is going to kind of play out rather than Southern California like we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks. So a little bit of change. Here's the high-resolution future radar for everybody else. Of course, we focused on the west, we focused on the northeast. Right smack dab in the center part of the country, though, let me get my head out of the way. You see this right here. There's a whole lot of quiet weather. This is early in the morning on Sunday. Big area of nothingness. So that's some good quiet news for us, although we could use some rain in parts of Texas as well to help the fire situation, to help the drought situation. But there we go from the high resolution model standpoint. There's that snow we were talking about. There comes that next storm. And then look at this. Big check mark if you have weekend plans in the heartland. Look at that. Kansas City, Oklahoma City, we're looking good. Monday evening, we are still dealing with that system out here, that next system getting ready to slide on through. But we are nice and clear and quiet right on in through the nation's heartland, from Minneapolis into Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Houston, we're looking good. Jackson, Mississippi, at that time, we are looking good. From a temperature standpoint, again, we do have some cool air, nothing too frigid just yet, but that could change again in a very short time in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to show you that long-range update in just 1 second. Here we go, 8 above Fahrenheit in Bearskin Lake, 14 below Celsius. And in Montreal, we're back to 37 Fahrenheit, 3 degrees above 0 Celsius. Again, that is for Saturday. And I want to get you guys into Sunday because that's when we have some of that colder air coming in with that storm pushing through the northeast. So now we're back to the freezing mark in Montreal. Just above that in Toronto, some of the colder air starting to slide back through. And then there we go in the east with the relatively speaking cooler air, although we are still dealing with temperatures in the mid-50s. That's going to be our cooler morning in central Florida. On Saturday, we could be pushing 90 degrees in parts of the Florida Peninsula. So it is going to be really, really warm in the south. And again, that warmth is going to help to fuel that severe weather threat across the North Gulf Coast and eventually the southeast. All right. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I want to double down on it, really triple down, because we highlighted this back in February, middle of February, and then again last week when we did the March outlook, that long range. And things are going to be changing big time, I think. I showed you in that previous video, and you can click on that. I'll put the card up there, and I'll have this at the end screen as well. But if you want to see how we came to this conclusion, but I just wanted to show you the model updates that continue to trend in the direction that we said that they would likely do so. So here we go, big ridge building out west. All you see there in that orange and peach shaded color, that's the height anomalies. So the higher the heights, the warmer the temperatures. And we see that ridge building out west. That is the positive PNA pattern coming through. Again, check out that last video and that it goes into the explanation of some of these oscillations that we were able to kind of forecast. Now, this hasn't happened yet, so I'm not ready to claim victory by any means. But when you see some of these oscillations changing and some of the long-range clues in the atmosphere, you certainly start to get more confidence whenever the longer-range ensembles start to bite on. And that's what we're looking at here, the European ensemble. And then you see that, all that blue. Those are lower than normal heights, the colder than normal temperatures at 500 millibars. Those are going to slide down the east. And that's exactly what we said would happen. Again, that was before these ensembles came out. So we were a week ahead of that. And again, it looked clear that we would have the jet stream buckling, we'd have the ridge building out west, and then maybe even some blocking. I had a question on one of the videos yesterday. Can New York get double-digit inches of snow to end the season? Central Park sitting at 8.5 inches, and I could not say no. This pattern is right. This is the pattern you look for and you want in December, and especially January and February when we are actually in winter. But this is what we get all too often. As soon as we are getting ready to transition into spring, then we finally get this pattern. And for the most part, it comes out to be just a crummy, cold rain. When everybody wants spring and everybody's just sick of the gray, then we get the winter pattern that we've all been longing for the entire winter in the Northeast. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The pattern is really right. So we could see more snow into the Northeast as we transition into that third week. Now, the date on here, by the way, is March 19th, early on March 19th. In the video, the last video, we said it was going to be around the 20th that we would see this come in. So we are about 10 to 12 days away from this. You better believe we're going to stay on this. We're going to be watching this because that could be significant if it continues to trend in that direction. Alrighty, guys, post in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you found this content helpful, please hit that thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. And if you want to hang out with us and talk about the weather as we get into hurricane season, as we get into severe weather season, as we wrap up this season we call winter, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you on board, and we will catch you next time.